At 74 years old, Bishop Noel Jones probably thought his past would never catch up to him. But in a shocking twist, gospel singer Leandria Johnson has done the unthinkable. Her raw, emotional truth has pierced through the silence surrounding one of the most respected figures in the Black church. This wasn't just a messy confession, it was a moment that peeled back the layers of secrecy that the gospel community has guarded for years. Leandria didn't just speak, she erupted. Her words were not rehearsed, not polished for PR. They were honest, unfiltered, and they've started something that can't be undone. For years, people whispered. Those close to the gospel scene knew there were unspoken tensions between Bishop Noel Jones and Leandria. But it wasn't until she stood on that stage, mic in hand, that the rumors turned into a public reckoning. This wasn't a petty feud. This was years of spiritual manipulation, power dynamics, and deep-rooted pain finally being dragged into the light. Leandria, with her powerhouse voice and reputation for saying what others only think, had always been a bit of a rebel in gospel circles. She never played by the rules, and that made her both beloved and controversial. But the moment she started naming names, specifically Bishop Noel Jones, was the moment the gospel world split wide open. Their history goes back years, not just from sharing stages or gospel award shows, but from quiet backstage conversations, attempts at mentorship, and, as she claims, moments where she reached out for help and was met with silence or, worse, spiritual gaslighting. She says she looked up to him once. She hoped he'd be the guide she needed through the chaos of faith and fame. But instead, she found someone more interested in appearances than authenticity. The moment that changed everything happened during a revival service in Atlanta. She wasn't even supposed to go there, but she did. And once she started speaking, there was no turning back. Her voice cracked, her eyes welled with tears, but her conviction was solid. She didn't just hint, she named it. She challenged the systems that protected powerful men in the pulpit, while dismissing and shaming the broken people beneath them. She asked the crowd why the church protects its leaders so fiercely while ignoring the pain they leave behind. Her message was clear. She was tired of being quiet. Tired of being told to wait her turn, to pray about it, to cover the very people who harmed her. And even though she never accused Bishop Jones of any criminal acts, what she described was a pattern of spiritual neglect, of being emotionally abandoned by someone who was supposed to cover her. Her words hit hard. When I needed covering, he gave me criticism. When I needed healing, he gave me a sermon. Those lines resonated with countless others who had been waiting for someone brave enough to say it out loud. Social media lit up like wildfire. Within minutes, clips from her testimony were all over TikTok and Instagram. Some people were crying in agreement, others were furious. The gospel world, typically so tight-lipped, suddenly split between those praising her bravery and those calling her out for breaking church protocol. Then came the response, or rather, the lack of one. Bishop Noel Jones didn't come out swinging. He didn't even speak Leandria's name. Instead, his ministry posted a quiet statement. We do not respond to noise. We respond in prayer. That was it. No denial, no support, no comment. People read between the lines. Was this spiritual maturity or a calculated move to avoid accountability? Some applauded his silence. Others saw it as cowardice. And when he finally addressed the controversy in a sermon, it was subtle. He said he refused to dignify falsehoods with fire. But that line didn't calm the storm, it only fueled more speculation. What followed was a wave of responses, not from the pulpit, but from the people. Gospel singers, background vocalists, churchgoers, and former insiders began reaching out. Some shared their own experiences. Others sent private messages of support to Leandria. Slowly, it became clear. This wasn't just about her. She had cracked open something deeper, a pattern, a culture. More women began speaking up. Stories that had been kept in secret for years now came spilling out into the open. Gospel artists described emotional manipulation, being controlled, silenced, and punished for stepping out of line. One young artist revealed how she was told to change her entire appearance to be more holy or risk losing her record deal. Another said she was blacklisted after refusing a bishop's advances. These weren't isolated stories. This was a systemic problem. And it had finally been called out on the main stage, but not everyone was ready to celebrate Leandria. Traditionalists in the church argued that she was wrong to bring this drama into the public eye. They said it should have been handled privately within the church walls, that she was attacking a man of God, and by doing so, attacking the church itself. Some called it rebellion. Others said she was doing it for attention. The debate was heated and, in many ways, generational. Younger believers, those who grew up questioning authorities, stood by her. They saw her as a truth-teller, a survivor, someone refusing to be silenced. Older members, especially those deeply rooted in church tradition, felt uncomfortable. For them, exposing leadership in public felt like betrayal. But Leandria stood her ground. She kept speaking, she kept posting, and she made one thing clear. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about truth. She didn't want to destroy anyone. She wanted healing, accountability, and change, and her courage inspired others. Artists, musicians, even some church leaders began speaking up carefully. At first, then more boldly. The gospel community started to reckon with itself. Not because it wanted to, but because it had to. Whispers turned into open dialogues. Panels were held. Podcasts released episodes unpacking the situation. Gospel blogs ran. Back-to-back think pieces on the evolving scandal. Everyone had an opinion. But the one thing no one could deny was that something had shifted, an executive in the gospel. Industry anonymously admitted that Leandria had always been considered difficult, not because she lacked talent, but because she refused to play by the rules. She wouldn't stay quiet, she wouldn't pretend. She wanted transparency in an industry that thrived on secrecy, from choir directors to former protégés of Bishop Jones. Many began stepping forward. They confirmed that the environment around powerful church leaders wasn't always what it seemed. It was often cold, performative, and more interested in appearances than in people's hearts. Some even admitted that Leandria's journey mirrored their own. They too had reached out for help, only to be met with platitudes or rejection. Now, her voice had become a rallying cry for those who had been overlooked and tossed aside. One older church leader said it best: what Leandria did was dangerous, but it was necessary. Because the same system that made her famous almost destroyed her spirit. Bishop Noel Jones still hasn't given a detailed response, and maybe he never will. But the silence once seen as strength now feels like avoidance. Meanwhile, Leandria is still showing up, flawed, passionate, faithful. She sings, she prays, and she refuses to disappear. This moment wasn't about taking someone down, it was about lifting up the truth. And whether you agree with her method or not, Leandria Johnson has sparked a movement, one where voices are finally being heard, where pain is no longer hidden, and where the gospel world must confront the cost of its silence, because healing doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from truth. And for Leandria Johnson, the truth might just be the most powerful song she's ever sung.